So today on Unborn Radio, uh, we are with Lord Dirty Worka. He's part of the Reaper Lords. He's been a part of it for a little bit. We're going to dive into some questions and get some information from him.
Get to know him, yeah. Yeah. I know.
Do I need a lawyer present?
Oh, shit.
All right, so Dirty, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Dirty Worka. Is my player character name. I'm a member of the Reaper Lords, a patch member. I've been a patch in the club since 2014, and been playing GTA literally since day one, like 20 years now. All the different games that have come out. Loved the game right up until about like, I don't know, 2017 or something like that, when it started to get real crazy. I still play it, but not nearly as much as I used to, just because the game is so wild now. It's not what I signed up for, so to speak, when I first started playing. But I do love the game. I still think it's like, the greatest game ever made. I just miss the old days before the oppressors and the laser mini guns and orbital cannons and all of that. But yeah, I don't know. That's about it.
The realism was kind of fallen from it a little bit.
Yeah, that was the great appeal for GTA. I mean, so I'm 43 years old, right? So I've been playing video games. I started out dropping quarters in the arcades, right? And have had like every home console, you can have in the past decades, since home console gaming was a thing. And so I played a lot of games coming up, a lot of games. And GTA is one of those games that just blew my mind. Like the first time even, like playing the top-down version, like on PC at my friend's house. Yeah. Like you could fight cops. You could and that just wasn't done. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in video games, like you didn't have that level of, sort of edginess, and then or like just wildness. Like everything was more sort of like fanciful and fantasy based and that kind of thing. And then when GTA came out, it was like, wow, I can kind of I could be a bad guy in a semi real world environment, and that was the great appeal for me when I first started playing GTA. And like obviously GTA 3 kind of changed everything when it went to the true open world. And there again, you could shoot hookers and rob people, and there was the whole like movie line sort of backstory where it felt like you were a character in like a great like crime drama. All those movies we loved growing up, it was kind of like now you could be a character within one of those, and that's what I loved about it. And so when GTA 5, when it went online and you could have all this character customization and buy motorcycles and all that kind of stuff, like it just for me was just such a huge advancement in gaming in general, and having that ability to just immerse yourself within kind of a criminal underworld, and to do all that hood rat shit without catching a case in real life is it's fun. It's like a release, and so I love that realism. Ego. Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people get too wrapped up in that. They kind of forget that it's pixels sometimes. But in general, that realism was definitely the appeal for me, and why I love this game and think it has had just its sort of glory days. And I'm hoping with GTA 6 it'll return to more of that kind of real world, kind of crime simulator. What do they call it? Murder simulator, I think the congressman called it, 20 years ago. But that's what I would like to see it go back to. And so,
like if I wanted to play the wild stuff, like we talk about it all the time within our club. Saints Row is the perfect game if you want to go and be crazy,
right.
With whatever. That's where a lot of these weapons and
great game
vehicles belong.
It
is a good game. Now, did you play any of the GTA, like the side ones, like the Lost in the Dam or the
I'm looking at all of them right now. I got them all. Love them.
Yeah, they're cracking games. Worka, just curious, what kind of got you into the GTA MC community?
I guess the biggest thing for me is I really was, I don't know, I'm a loyal guy. I am I don't know how to describe it without sounding too corny, but like like in the real world you have relationships with friends that are close and you trustworthy, really, and you take care of each other, and you can kind of rely on each other. And I figure, like, if I'm going to spend a lot of time with people, I want them to be, the kind of people that I would kick it with on the street and feel comfortable around and feel like I could trust them and rely on them. I didn't want to be like crew hopping and just, I don't know, being around a bunch of random people all the time. So for me, I was looking for, I'll say in general, like a gaming clique that I could just play with every night and have those kind of close relationships with. And I didn't really, it wasn't necessarily like an MC thing or any other kind of thing. I just, kind of was looking for that in general. And then I could tell you, I saw, this, I could finally remember it. I think we were talking about it on the In the Cut episode, but, there was a club called the Highway Reapers, and, I'll never forget. I was like just, goofing around in a lobby one day, and I saw like 6 of these guys ride by in formation. And I was like literally like standing on the side of the highway over by Vespucci Beach. And these guys all rolled up, pulled up next to me, in formation, parked up smartly. And I was like, what is this about? You know what I mean? Like, I just thought, because, GTA is crazy. You got knuckleheads running around with miniguns and tanks and jets and all this horse shit. And here come, these guys, and they were like squared away, dressed the same, riding the same vehicles, parking up the same. And I just looked at that and was like, wow, that to me as an older guy was very appealing in that it wasn't just a bunch of madness, like I like that crazy stuff. Yeah, from time to time, but not 24/7 all day, every day. Squeakers running around, screaming on the mic and stuff. So when I saw them acting squared away like that, I was like, oh, that's a cool thing that they do in this game that I didn't know anything about. And so I started, I just hopped on, did some research and, started to realize that there was like a community out there of people that play that way. And then one of the guys that I played with on a regular basis, I wasn't like real close with him, but like I recognized his name, right? Like Free Aim is a small community, right? And this dude Tenshu Assassin, and I rolled up on him one day at Los Santos Customs, and he's like standing out there with a brown jacket on at the entrance. And then there's this other dude, Hammer, that he used to play with us from time to time. I was standing at the other. And I was like, I ran up on him. I was like, what's going on? You got, you want to go shoot some dots or whatever? And he's like, no, I can't. I said, I'm standing guard. I was like, standing guard for what? And he's like, Lords. And I was like, what's the Reaper Lords? And, he started to kind of break it down for me a little bit. Introduced me to a couple of guys, and they all seemed pretty mature and chill and level-headed. So I said, yeah, what the hell? I'll give it a shot. I'll apply. I'll try it out. And then, that was over, over 5 years ago.
So the Reaper Lords were the first club you were ever associated with, right?
Yeah. I've never been in any other like club or crew or anything like that. Yeah, no, this is it for me.
So, well, you already answered that one. So are the founders still a part of the Reaper Lords?
No, they've moved on and they're doing other things. They're not, terribly active, I don't think, on GTA and that kind of thing anymore. But the cool thing about Reaper Lords, and I'm only going to bring it up because I was just talking to the guys about it last night, is, we have in our club like deep traditions. I mean, a lot of people talk about the rules and, that kind of thing that, have distinguished us over the years. I think a lot of the community has adopted a lot of what we've talked about over the years, whether or not they realize, how much precedent we set for a lot of stuff. But, the reality is, we've been doing this day in and day out since 2013, same way. And it's because we have this sort of underpinning organization and, set of protocols that we operate by. And it has really grown into, a culture within our own club that gets passed on from generation to generation. So, for example, I was national president of the club up until last night. I turned it over to Lord Assassin, and we've had successive, national presidents over the years. It always transitions smoothly. We hand it over, and basically the traditions and the underpinning of the organization, which is, the rules and the forums and the way that we operate and all the protocols, like that tradition and that culture just carries on from generation to generation to generation. It's not reliant on any one person. There's no one big personality that is sort of running things. So like when the club founders stepped down, it was okay because the whole club already knows how to act. We already have this whole, sort of, mode of behavior and procedures and protocols and so forth. So we have these transitions in the club all the time, and yet the club continues to carry on because we all kind of, we adhere to it. We believe in it. The club's bigger than, kind of any one of us.
I like that. I think, from us, we definitely relate to that.
We're real similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I definitely have that sense. Yep.
Like with us, we say, everything changes, but nothing changes over the years. You know what I mean? So we grow and adapt. New people come in, but it flows the same way it did, 3-4 years ago. With that, like you said, with the transition, all our higher ups that have ever been have always handed that torch over when they needed to, when they felt they couldn't continue. And I feel that's the main reason we're still here, 6 years later, because we can
recognize when to pass the gavel. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of, and I don't want to say a lot. I don't know. That's not a fair statement, but at least certainly some of the clubs that I've experienced over the years, you have an issue with somebody with a big personality. So like I had a kid in my DMs earlier today crying about us using CEO organizations, and he's trying to lecture me on how MCs are supposed to work. And I'm like, how many clubs have you been in? He says, rattle them off. He's been doing this since blah, blah, blah. He's been in all these different clubs and he's had all these different names. And I'm like, kid, you don't even understand like what being in a club is about, and you're trying to lecture me on it. This kid, started up his own club. He calls himself founder, calls himself president, and all of this stuff. But he's been in, 3 clubs in the past 2 years. And it's like, yeah, all right, so you call yourself pres, you call yourself founder, but any 12-year-old can hop on Social Club and start up an MC and call themselves whatever they want to, right? I don't, for me in our club, it is not about that one big personality. It's not about that one dude and what he thinks is right or whatever. It's a collective. We all have a voice and a vote and rights within the club where, we collectively decide how things go. So you're not beholden to some little dictator who thinks he knows everything and, his big personality and the club lives or dies with, everything he says. That's not what we're about. Again, I get that same sense from you guys. And, I think that's what kind of allows clubs like ours to go on for that period of time, because it's not all, linked to one person's ego. And if he has a fit and starts acting like a dick, everybody quits and all of that. No, the club belongs to all of us. You know what I mean? It's not my club. It's not, the last MP's club or the previous MP's club. It's all of our club, and the officers are just there to serve the club and make sure that make sure the name goes on. Kind of we've all benefited from being in the club and, the family atmosphere that we have, but without the club, that wouldn't be there. So it's bigger than any one of us individually. If I'm having a bad day, that's kind of my problem, not the club's problem. And I think that's the difference between clubs that are very successful in the long run and these clubs that keep popping up and failing and collapsing. It's, they're too focused on individuals' egos and sort of what's in it for them, as opposed to creating an atmosphere and an environment and structure in which many people for generations to come can, benefit from what you've benefited from. Like I say, that for me is in many ways what distinguishes the successful clubs from the ones that pop up and fail and start again. They come back talking about, we've been here since 2014. It's like, nah, you've been in 18 different friggin' clubs since 2014. Yeah. Your club was on Ice 6. Like, this is like the 4th or 5th version of that club I've seen pop up. And in 2 weeks, you got 20 members and you're all full patches. Like, get out of here. What are you talking about? So,
for real, yeah. Just curious, when you prospected or for the club or reports, what did you initially have in mind when you first came up?
I didn't know they were such dicks. Like, I was like, wow, these guys are really cold and really, sort of take this stuff super serious. Like, I wasn't really at that level. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't looking like to be a high
for where you are now
player. Yeah. Like I was just sort of like, oh, this is all a little bit weird, and these guys are all taking themselves a little bit too seriously. And quite frankly, a ton of people who go through our prospecting process have that same opinion, and they quit. And they're like, man, fuck those guys. They're assholes. They're arrogants. They're dickheads. All they did was treat me like shit. And, and the thing that you don't realize when you're going through that process, and what I didn't realize is, all this brotherhood and everything else that everybody talks about, you don't get that until you get to the other side. You know what I'm saying? It's like, again, I imagine, me, 3, 4, 5 of my friends at a club, sitting off in the corner. Like, you don't get to just walk up and kick it with us like we're best friends forever straight out the gate. Like, you would have to, prove yourself, show that you're loyal, show that you're trustworthy. Over time, you would earn that trust and, become part of that, that special relationship that we have. You know what I mean? And it's kind of the same thing in the Reaper Lords. Like, they're very sort of standoffish initially, because, you get a lot of people who apply and talk a lot of stuff about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And you're like, after you've seen 100, 200, 500 people not follow through on their word, make a lot of promises, you do become kind of skeptical and standoffish. And we do decide, we have come to the conclusion that, you do have to push people through a lot to get them to prove themselves before we want them, sort of on the other side of the wall. Once you get to the other side of the wall, that's when you get all respect and loyalty and friendship, because you've proven that where other people talk a lot of shit, you can actually live up to it and be part of what, we're trying to do. And again, it has served us very well. It creates a lot of enemies for us. It creates a lot of people who hate us and think we're dicks and arrogant and all that. But it's just our process. It's not even like when we're being harsh to like a prospect or something like that, it has nothing to do with whether or not we like them or dislike them as a person. It's that we have learned over the years that if you're hard on people on the front end, the ones who aren't really serious and aren't really going to stick it out are going to leave, and that's okay. God love them. We hope they go off and do things and find happiness elsewhere. But for the ones who are able to push through it, they have this, whatever it is, this weird personality trait that allows them to get real serious about being part of an online gaming crew. And for us, it really is about that family and those relationships, and we protect that, and we don't want to let people in who are going to disrupt that and fuck it up. So that's why we're really tough on the front end. It's not to be, it's not because we think we're better or that, we think other people are less. It's that we cherish what we have so much that we do what we have to do to protect it. And it feels awkward sometimes when you're, barking at somebody, giving them a hard time. You don't necessarily want to, but it is the process to break the ones who are not going to be a fit once they get on the other side. I apologize too for the cursing. If you need me to stop cursing, I'll.
No, it's all right. You can go ahead. Now, what you're saying makes sense so completely. Like, it's just really survival of the fittest, as they say.
Yeah. Well,
like with us, like we don't bully or haze any of our prospects, but they have to earn the patch. Let's say maybe they'll have to go to the impound lot, get my bike, but by the time they get there, I already called it back in, kind of thing. Or, we just do little things like that. Might take them to a gang attack, have them clear it. Like I said, we don't do any of the bully stuff, but like you said, like you're not just going to wear my patch just because you want it. It's got to be more than a one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for us, we do a tremendous amount. Yeah, I think, personally myself, and I think a lot of people focus on, sort of the harsher aspects of prospecting for us, but it's definitely that's not what it is all day, every day, right? We do it in like almost a controlled fashion. Like we sort of deal it out enough. And the reason that we do it is to evaluate judgment more than anything else. It's not to see if you can be subservient. It's not to see if, we can somehow, hold ourselves above you and dominate you in any kind of a way. It's really just to see, does this person have enough sense not to act stupid right now? You know what I mean? So like you'll get on somebody's ass and you're not mad at him. You're not really trying to sort of haze them or bully them. What you're really looking to see is, does this person understand that this is part of our process? If they are too full of themselves and their ego is too big, they will never make it in the club once they get in. You know what I'm saying? Once they make it into patch, if they have an ego that big that they can't humble themselves for a minute and take a breath when the heat is on, then once they get a patch, they're going to be a nightmare, sort of like I say, on the other side of that wall, because it's always going to be about them, and it's the me show. And if anybody talks shit to me, I'm going to fire back. Like in a family, in a club like ours, you can't do that. We can get into skirmishes and arguments, and just like anybody else would, but like there does have to be a point where there's give and take, where you kind of say, okay, this is getting out of hand. I'm going to swallow my pride. Even though I think I'm right, I'm just going to kind of say, okay, it's not worth us continuing to bang on like this. So you got to walk away. And the other person has to be able to say, you know what, I think I'm right, but you're right in that we shouldn't carry on like this. Let's just hug it out and move on. If you have people during the prospecting phase that when you get in their ass, they want to continue to fire back, continue to argue, get emotional, get angry, well, then that just from a personality type standpoint, they don't have sort of the self-discipline, control, and humility to kind of recognize it for what it is and say, okay, I'm going to be chill right now. And again, once you get your patch, you have to be able to do that. So when we're giving people a hard time, call it bullying, call it hazing, but what it is for us is evaluating their judgment and their ability to kind of say, all right, I need to stand down here because that's what I'm expected to do. And then again, when you get patched in, if you have that sense, then fantastic. You're going to be, that much more successful and not a disruptive, sort of problem within the club once you get in. At least that's my sort of theory on how it all works.
Right. So over the years within the Reaper Lords, like what kind of things have changed and evolved into something else? Like from day one when you were in to now, what kind of changes has the club made, and where's it gone?
Yeah, I think that we have certainly evolved. We've been through a lot, but again, I think in many ways it's very similar. It's very similar. I think the biggest differences probably are around like things like combat. In that like on PS3. Lobby push-outs were like one of the most fun things that we did. I absolutely loved it because you had 15-person lobbies. You didn't have all these oppressors and orbital cannons and bulletproof helmets and all of that nonsense. So you could get 15 patches in a lobby. So like 2 or 3 of us would get in a lobby. We'd start fighting, pushing people out. More patches would come in until it was all Reaper Lords in the lobby, and then we would just have fun messing around in a public lobby that we took over. And then we'd say, okay, let's go do another one. Do you know what I mean? And that was, tremendous fun. But once we made the leap over to PS4, and now you have 30-player lobbies, you have bulletproof helmets, you have, friggin' bullshock on demand, all of this other kind of nonsense. Being able to take over a lobby, the only way you can do that nowadays is if you have huge numbers. But with our recruiting process and, sort of how selective we are never going to be a crew that has 1,000 members. We're never going to be a crew that has 500 members. You know what I mean? It's not that we couldn't, we certainly could, but, we don't choose to do that. So, in that regard, we tend to be a small club, right? I think, a lot of people think of us as a big, huge club, but we're really not. We're a very small club and kind of always have been. We're just not interested in putting, 15, 20, 30 people in a lobby for hours and hours and hours a night. We're grown-ups. We all, most of us have, children and full-time jobs and all that kind of thing. So it's not practical. So I do kind of miss those days back on PS3, having a very heavy combat focus in the club. That was a lot of fun. But now I think it's much more chill. I mean, we spend, probably 75% of our time on Red Dead nowadays, which is obviously a very chill game. And maybe 25% of the time on GTA. And when we're doing that, we're primarily like running TDMs, together, riding around together, taking pictures, that kind of thing. A handful of us do still like to go out into the lobbies. Personally, that's all I like to do is, ride around in free mode, shooting with randoms and that kind of thing. But like, the days of us doing, big full scale lobby wars and that kind of thing, that's just not our focus. We're more focused on just having fun together and that kind of thing. So in that regard, it has changed quite a bit.
Right.
If you're looking for an MC, please check out www.theunbornmc.com for more information.